What's the most wonderful time of the year for you? Christmas? Shark Week? Tax season? For me, it's when I get to binge a bunch of shmups on Steam and share them with you guys. Here we are for the third year in a row. It's A Skeleton's Spooky Steam Shoot 'em Up Smorgasbord 3. Happy Halloween.
Yet I live. I live!
Eschatos.
Geez, you guys really are all up on this Eschatos. Alright, I guess I'll try it, but I'm not expecting much. Whoa. Hey. Dude, this song is great. Oh, look at this cool thing I can do. I knew the pyramids were made by aliens.
I'll go it alone from here. Fuck!
Aw, game over. Let's play it again! After my underwhelming experience with Judgment Silversword, and knowing that Eschatos was also from Cute, I was a bit skeptical with this one. How happy I was to be proven wrong. Usually I prefer shmups that give you all kinds of crazy power-ups, but Eschatos keeps it simple by giving you a straight shot, a wide shot, and a recharging shield. Just because your tools are basic doesn't mean this game is boring or lacking in spectacle. I loved plowing my way through hordes of UFOs and slowly dismantling the ginormous bosses piece by piece. All to that absolutely sublime soundtrack. The frequent shifts in perspective took a while to get used to at first, and needing to unlock continues through leveling up your profile means you'll be seeing the first bunch of areas pretty frequently before you beat the game. But that is A-okay with me. Love me some Eschatos, and thank you very much for recommending it in the comments. I'll give it a difficulty rating of...
Bones.
Wings of Bluestar.
Well, they can't all be bangers. I really don't get the deal with this one. I've seen people talk positively about it, and it's sitting at 100% positive reviews on Steam. Really? For this? It's mechanically sound, I suppose, but it's a truckload of little problems that bring the whole experience down for me. Obnoxious sound design being a big one. Between announcer lady constantly saying bonus, the incessant danger sirens that aren't really necessary, and this. Wow. They really managed to capture the essence of... Being able to rotate your add-ons is kinda neat, but it's bound to the bottom triggers on a controller by default. This isn't ideal since you need precision control to quickly fire in the right direction, and the triggers have too much travel to allow for that. I tried rebinding to R1 and L1, but the game wasn't having it. I couldn't even change the special button to square. And yes, I know I could have done that in Steam settings, but I should really just be able to do it in the game. The music is dull and repetitive, but that's okay. Pause the game on stage 1 and the music will bug out and stop playing. Good, finally some peace and... There are other problems, but look, I don't want to tear this game down. It's lacking in a bunch of ways, but it looks like this was Shinu Real Art's first project, so I'll cut him a little slack. It's a decent effort for a first try. As long as it's reasonably priced on Steam, then I don't see why... $20?! Do not spend $20 on this game. Difficulty rating of...
Yes!
Anger Force Reloaded.
Let's get back to the good shit. Screambox Studio managed to create a shmup with extremely polished gameplay and graphics. They just couldn't quite nail the finer points of the English language. Oh my god, guys, the talented indie musician is one of my favorite composers. Well, they're from Beijing, so cut them some slack. Anger Force is one of those shmups where the stages end up being way more interesting than the bosses, because of how the combo system works. Each of the 4 characters gets 2 special attacks that cost energy. Destroying enemies with a special will start a combo timer and increase your point multiplier until you take a hit. More energy drops from certain enemies, so you get this intense cycle of keeping the combo going by using specials, and frantically collecting energy so you can keep using more specials. Bosses sort of drop this scoring mechanic and become fairly typical bullet hell fights, though they are well designed. I've mentioned in the past that I'm not really interested in getting high scores while shmupping, but recently I've become more involved in the shmup community and in turn more interested in the genre in general. Now I can feel that fiendish desire for big points creeping into my bones, and games like Anger Force make it massively enjoyable to reach for new heights. Another thing I love about this game, full analog control. No more using a throttle button to slow down, now you have full, buttery, smooth control over your speed with an analog stick, and it feels so good. And the rockin' soundtrack by talented indie composer is badass. Anger Force Reloaded, a surprise hit and one that quickly made its way into my favorites. Difficulty rating of...
Well, get a broom! We wouldn't want to attract vermin now, would we?
Raging Blasters.
Raging Blasters from Terrarin Games is a lot like Eschatos with a simple gameplay style that focuses more on scoring over spectacle and high difficulty. It's all about squeezing maximum efficiency out of your 2 attacks and the sub-weapon power-ups. The homing sub-weapon will serve you well for most of the game, but you might be able to take down certain bosses much faster with a different option, leading to a higher score. This is a great game, but if you don't like the idea of chasing a high score, then it's probably not for you. These bosses aren't really designed to be fun or challenging, they're designed to make you be as efficient as possible and get them over with quick, especially the last phase of the final boss. And while the music is really good, the highlight being Stage 7, the sound effect for hitting certain enemies and bosses is ear-gratingly awful. Thankfully you can turn down the sound effects in the, oh, it only changes in intervals of 25? Strange, but okay. If this looks like your kind of game, I challenge you to beat my high score. Rank 21 after a 1cc on normal mode. Just at me on Twitter with a screen cap. Looking forward to seeing what you guys can do. Difficulty rating of...
What am I running for?
The Zeal Series.
I think I'm just not a big fan of Triangle Services style of shmup. Available on Steam are Zyzeal, Delta Zeal, X Zeal, and Tri-Zeal Remix. They aren't bad, I just find them kinda mediocre. Lousy music, dull gameplay, uninteresting power-ups, and on a side note, why are their menus always so butt ugly? I did wind up enjoying X Zeal more than the others, and Delta Zeal does have some really nice pixel graphics. Wish I could say more, I just don't find them interesting enough to stick with. I'd much rather play something like Kamui. At least they go on sale for pretty cheap if you must have them. Difficulty rating of...
I want that crystal!
Mushihimesama.
Man, I don't know why it took me 3 years to get around to talking about this one. It's been in my collection the whole time. It's from Cave, so you know it's good. I used to take issue with how cave shooters often have a lot of slowdown when the bullets get especially hellish, but after enough exposure, I think I've finally gotten used to it. Good thing too, because you kinda need it. I mean, just look at this. Could you handle this at full speed? You get your money's worth with Mushihimesama, just like any other cave shooter on Steam. Extremely polished gameplay with lots of different game modes like arranges and remixes, not to mention really nice music. I just want to say real quick, I tried arrange mode once just to get some footage, and I didn't realize it was a super hard mode. But I played it at a skill level that I didn't realize I was capable of. I was like a man possessed. Actually made it to level 3 with a really good score before my first continue, and it was awesome. But if I had to give it a difficulty rating, it would be...
Burn in hell. Ah! Don't beat around the boneyard, Doctor!
Dodonpachi Resurrection.
This is probably the series that Cave is most well known for. Everybody in the shmup community knows about Dodonpachi, which apparently is both the Japanese sound for gunfire and bees. Uh-huh. This is a perfect example of a shmup with a lot going on under the hood concerning score. If you just want to have a rip-roaring good time with big-ass lasers, then this game delivers. But if you want to aim for the big points, a little manual reading may be required. If a pro Dodonpachi player watched me play, he'd probably be able to name 5 things I was doing wrong in the first minute. And you know what? That is okay. This game is so much fun that I don't mind figuring out things over time. It's a visual and auditory treat, with the same expansive gameplay options as Mushihimesama, and we should be grateful that it's easily available to purchase on Steam. Difficulty rating of...
Sine Mora EX.
Do you want to play a slow, plodding, cinematic shmup that constantly takes control away from you to play boring-ass cutscenes? Then Sine Mora EX is for you. I'm sorry, I know some people like this game, but it's not for me. It's just so boring. It goes on sale for really cheap, and I often see it as bundle fodder on other websites if you simply must own it. Wish I could say more, but I just find it so uninteresting that I can't be bothered. Difficulty rating of...
Don't tease the dog, Dagger. You'll upset him.
Spark and Sparkle.
Here's a creative little shmup that's part Twinkle Star sprites and part... Saw? You gotta race against your opponent to finish a jigsaw puzzle, shooting up enemies and collecting gems to send hazards their way. Don't let the cute anime style fool you, this game can get pretty intense. I did have to mute the repetitive music after a while and start playing my own. Yeah, you already know where this is going. Spark and Sparkle. It's a cute 'em up, shoot 'em up for puzzle-loving partners with Japanese fantasies. Difficulty rating of...
Oh, look, he wants to play. Cyborn, I said he wants to play.
Good night.
Man, I had no idea Filipino mythology was so fucking rad. Good Night is an upcoming bullet hell game with a simple mechanic. You only use one button. Your character automatically moves in a circle around the field. All you have to do is tap a button to do a quick slash and reverse your direction. Technically, there is a little more to it, since if you hold a button and aim with the analog stick, you can fire off a range shot that takes out minor enemies or deals extra damage to a boss. I say extra since you even fire automatically when a boss is present. You can also hold L2 to slow down the action at the cost of points. I'm sure I don't need to tell you since you've probably already gone slack-jawed at how visually striking this game is, but I'll say it anyway. God damn, this game looks good. It has style oozing from the seams, and unfortunately, it does make the action pretty hard to follow sometimes. There have been many occasions where I wasn't able to parse my distance from an oncoming projectile and took a hit for it, and I've also been caught by surprise in between phases where I was out of position and unable to react. The devs have basically said that they see the appeal of memorizing levels and patterns so players can chase a high score. And while I personally believe there's a distinction between skill and memory, with a game that looks this amazing and has so much detail, I have absolutely no issue with replaying these levels. Did I mention that the music goes harder than the demons of hell? I'll be buying this soundtrack for sure, if anything just so I can listen to it without being interrupted by constant deaths. There's never been a game that looks or plays quite like Good Night. It's stimulating, challenging, and at times frustrating, but on this rare occasion, I'm okay with taking my lumps and mustering forth. Very much looking forward to the full release. I give it a very enthusiastic difficulty rating of... Update! While editing this video, I've since gotten to play the early access release on Steam, and the devs have made a lot of improvements to bullet and pattern visibility, even going as far as to add a quote, puzzle mode with fewer distractions. This is great! Now I can play through the first level with about 1/3 of the usual shits, fucks, and dams. This is a team that's paying attention to their players, and it has my expectations soaring for Good Night's future, but it still gets a difficulty rating of...
Bon voyage!
TQ Boygun 4.1 Wingdiver the Shooter.
Wingdiver? More like... Yeah, this game is actually pretty underwhelming. It's not polished enough to be a good shmup, and it doesn't have the same cornball dialogue and voice acting that makes the EDF game so entertaining to listen to. Stop Skeletons from Fighting once said that good cheesy dialogue is hard to write and even harder to perform, and I think that applies here. It's close, but it doesn't quite hit the mark. Now, if this, like the proper EDF games, was generous with new weapon upgrades to try out, it might actually have some appeal. Unfortunately, it dulls them out far too slowly, forcing you to grind for proper equipment that can get you through the higher difficulty levels. Turning EDF into a shmup seemed like an awesome idea, and I was excited for it, but it just didn't turn out the way I had hoped. It does go on sale for just a couple bucks pretty often. For that price, I'd say it's a harmless purchase. Difficulty rating of...
We take a lickin' and keep on clickin'.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm having a blast. What's the next game?
Are you ready?
No!
Oh my god, this again? How many of these fucking games are there? I mean, I know I like to feel stimulated when playing a shmup, but this is not what I mean. Stop buying these games, people. You could be playing Crimson Clover. You could be playing Shower with Your Dad Simulator 2015, the game where picking the black kid is considered easy mode. Or you could be playing...
Hellsinker.
Guys, I tried. I swear I tried. I keep hearing over and over how Hellsinker is the shit. Hellsinker is one of the greatest shmups ever made. Hellsinker will suck your dick. But every time I try to play it, I'm just like...
You just made no more.
I have never played a shmup that is up its own ass like Hellsinker, and I'm not even talking about the complex mechanics. For me, the problems start right at the main menu. Besides barely being able to make out the font, the terminology is just strange. Full sequence order? Tuning dispo? Archegement of executors?
What the fuck?
Here's what the tutorial looks like. Step after step of weird mechanics that you have to read while this is going on behind the text. You know one of the things I like about shmups? They're easy to pick up and play. You don't have to study for an hour like it's a fucking test. I recently bought a game called Stella Vanity on DL Site, an amazing shmup that everybody should try. That too is a game with a lot going on, but it's still 100% playable without learning all of its little intricacies. Despite the complexity and the fact that some of it is still in Japanese, I am having so much more fun with that game because it doesn't force its mechanics on you. You can figure them out slowly over time and have multiple eureka moments where you figure out that, oh shit, I could have been doing that this whole time. But Hellsinker? Every time I play through level 1, I get to this slow section of enemies and frantically try to figure out the consistent way to damage them. Every time I'd somehow start damaging one and not have any idea what I did to make it happen. Sorry guys, I guess I just didn't study hard enough for the test. I'm not stupid enough to say that Hellsinker is a bad game just because I haven't figured it out yet. Of course not. I'm sure if I put in the time and meticulously learned how to play it, I might come to enjoy it, but that's just not what I'm looking for in this genre. Skeleton brain wants shooty bangs and big purty boom booms. Perhaps sometime in the future I'll revisit this game in a separate video, but for now, sorry Hellsinker, I'll stick with Stella Vanity, a game that I guarantee we'll be talking about again one day. Difficulty rating of...
This is no time for fetch, you fool!
Let's talk about City Connection and Zero Div for a sec. These guys have been doing an amazing job of bringing classic shoot-em-ups to Steam, with the exception of Zero Gunner 2. Seems like that one has some problems. I can't tell you how happy I was to see that the Strikers 1945 games were actually coming to Steam. I bought a bunch of them, so let's take a quick look at some.
Game Tengoku Cruisn Mix Special.
Oh boy, it's anime time. In this game, some evil doofus that looks like he should be an antagonist in a show about a children's card game has digitized his consciousness and taken over a local arcade. Dr. Cortex, is that you? You start by fighting through the arcade and into a crane game ruled over by a cat girl, but then you wind up going deeper down the rabbit hole into the games themselves. Like a space shooter, a racing game, this section that I'm pretty sure is a reference to Afterburner, a Space Invaders ripoff, and even Breakout. This game is absolute insanity and pretty challenging to boot. There's so much variety in the enemies that I wound up getting surprised a bunch of times on my first couple playthroughs. Game, come on. I turned the voice volume off. Why am I still hearing this? The gameplay may be fairly basic, but the references and personality more than make up for it. Game Tengoku Cruisn Mix Special is a wild ride, with a difficulty rating of...
No, you hollow-headed idiot!
Dragon Blaze.
Aw yeah, sick yo. Now we're getting into the quality stuff. The mechanics for this game are so rad. You ride a dragon that you can fire forward like a melee attack to deal heavy damage, and then call back to you whenever you want. Besides bombs, you also get a recharging magic attack that behaves differently depending on if your dragon is sent out or not. Something you'll learn very quickly about these Sikyo titles on Steam. It doesn't matter if you're playing on the easiest difficulty, come stage 5 or so, you will get your ass kicked. These games are extremely stingy with extra lives, so making use of your bombs to stay alive is the way to go. Wait, is that a skeleton dragon? Oh! You simply must try Dragon Blaze. Difficulty rating of...
What was that?
Soul Divide. Sword of Darkness.
Man, the team at Sikyo sure were into some fantasy stuff, huh? Unfortunately, I think Soul Divide may have been a small misstep in their journey to become the deliverers of shmup quality. Sikyo games are hard, but this one just feels like a pain in the ass. Besides your ranged attack and building up magic to cast powerful spells, you also get a melee attack that's necessary for when enemies get all up in your grill, which they do constantly. The idea is to smack the enemy first and stun them, but taking a hit during the windup will cancel the attack. Since there's barely any post-hit invincibility, you can wind up losing half your health bar just trying to get an enemy to fuck off. The last boss is impossible. Try to fight him normally and you will quickly eat dirt. I'm assuming you have to go in with a full mana bar and the death spell or something, but you really need that mana to get through the hellish levels leading up to it. But he managed to beat this at an arcade. I would love to know how many quarters it took. Difficulty rating of...
This is a fine mess!
Gunbird 2.
Hey, wait a minute. Haven't we been here before? That's right, I talked about the Dreamcast version of Gunbird 2 back in my Games You Should Emulate video. The video that barely anybody watched. Who's upset? I'm not upset. The Steam version doesn't have Morrigan, and it doesn't have the same gameplay variety of Dragon Blaze, but it's still well worth the purchase. It does have a bad case of anime sounds with one character. I will pay you 3 power-ups to shut the fuck up. Difficulty rating of...
And he'll have no choice but to join my legion of skeletons.
Strikers 1945-3.
I've said before, I loved these games as a kid. The idea of flying around real-life planes that fire very not real-life lasers and shit was so cool. I was always especially fond of the stealth bomber, even though I'm pretty sure these aren't designed for combat in real life. I do plan on buying the other 2 at a later date, especially since the general consensus seems to be that Strikers 2 is the best one. But really, you could play any of them and still have a blast. There's a lot of variety between the planes, like the AV-8 Harrier having a special attack that turns your missile-firing options into homing drones that ruthlessly lay the hurt on enemies. Did you know that collecting these medals right as they flash white gives you more points? I learned that one at Shmup Slam 4. Strikers 1945. Hard as hell, satisfying as fuck, and immensely nostalgic. Difficulty rating of...
Oh, I don't know. Something more appropriate. Commander Gullible. Captain Patsy.
Neko Navy.
Neko Navy? More like Cat's Bizarre Adventure. This game will take you to some strange places with even stranger enemies. Collect these blue cats dropped from enemies to charge up your bomb, and activate it to deal a bunch of damage and make any destroyed enemies drop point items. You'll want all the points you can get for extra lives. Don't let the lackadaisical nature of the first level fool you. This game gets tough. Oh, here comes the boss of level 3. Well, this is even more threatening than that time I fought a bunch of rocks in Super Hydra.
Oh my god!
If you ask me, there are too many shmups where you play as a dog. About time the cats got to kick some ass. Difficulty rating of...
Join us. Then you and me could have some real fun.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
Freedom Finger.
Ah, Freedom Finger. Never has there been a game with a main character that so perfectly encapsulates the American spirit. It makes a really strong first impression with an awesome song called Prehistoric Dog by Red Fang. It was just the first level, so I figured the gameplay would get more fast-paced and interesting, but the mechanics you're taught and the pace that's set is pretty much what you get. You can shoot, punch, and grabbing certain enemies will let you use their weapons. Sounds cool, but the weapons all lack punch and are barely more useful than your basic shots. Like this charge cannon. Whoa, slow down there. That was almost threatening. About the soundtrack, well, just like back in the good old days of DDR, there will always be songs that you don't like and aren't interested in playing. And I can safely say that I hated the entirety of my experience with level 2/1 because of the dog shit song. It actually amazes me that this song was even given consideration for this game. And I'm sorry if that's mean, but it was mean to make me listen to this for a whole level. Well, hey, the gameplay may be somewhat listless, but I can't complain about the presentation. Wide Right Interactive even managed to get popular voice actors Nolan North and John DiMaggio on board for story scenes. Man, somebody knew the right people. I'd say get this one on sale for sure. Its heart is in the right place, especially with the jab it makes at Blizzard in the options. Oh my god, this is perfect. Freedom Finger. We are Americans, and we don't give a fuck. Difficulty rating of...
Has anyone ever told you that you have beautiful bones?
Maidens of a Hollow Dream.
It's the battle of the anime girls to see who wears the superior loincloth. And no, I don't mean one of these. By all rights, Maidens of a Hollow Dream should just be a throwaway smut game, but color me shocked, it's actually amazingly solid. Your partner character acts as an option that can be switched to for a different attack and to get through walls. Collecting gems from defeated enemies powers up your special gauge. You can store up to 3 charges and use them separately or all at once to enter one of the most powerful hyper modes I've ever seen. And I'm not going to show you the animation you get when you use it. It's not straight up porn, but it's saucy enough to not show on YouTube. I really like the Vocaloid song for the first level. It's a shame the whole soundtrack wasn't given this treatment. It's fairly clear that this game was developed with the sex sells mentality, but hey, I still like it. Difficulty rating of...
Excellent!
Steel Vampire.
I have no idea what's going on, but this is fucking awesome! Would you believe that Steel Vampire came from the same developer of the previous game? I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how the shop and equipment system works, which is undeniably the fault of the game's absolutely terrible menus, but I still had a ton of fun blasting shit and watching the pretty explosions, not to mention the gratuitous use of skeleton imagery. Oh, so you think just adding skeletal features to something automatically makes it cooler? Well, you're right, I'm just mad somebody else figured out the secret. Difficulty rating of...
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Ah! Now, that was satisfying!
Shikhondo Soul Eater.
I was really impressed with this one. Between the solid mechanic of collecting souls to activate a hyper mode and spending a bomb to make said hyper mode even more hyper, the striking art style, especially during boss fights, whoa, somebody called the nipple police, can't show that on YouTube, and the soundtrack that just goes way harder than anybody would expect from this kind of game. Here's a little pop quiz for you. Roll Cage track theme or Shikhondo boss theme? I know, right? It's uncanny. If a shmup this stylish and good can be developed in Unity, I may just give it a try myself in the future. Shikhondo gets a difficulty rating of...
I will crap in your mouth! What? Come here, sweetheart. What? Help! I have 10 pounds of crap. No! We are in a world of beauty. You belong to me now.
Servants of Harvest Wish.
If you're a Touhou fan, there is absolutely no reason that you shouldn't try this one, because it's 100% free on Steam. The dev didn't even charge a few bucks for the surprisingly good soundtrack. Freaking mad lad. The plot is pretty down to earth by Touhou standards. Instead of a ghost trying to steal spring, or a moon goddess with her personal physician trying to make the night last forever, or space Buddhists, nah, crops are going bad. That's all. Find out who's making the crops go bad. Aside from the default controller bindings being kinda weird and needing to go into Steam's controller options to change them, I have nothing to complain about with this exceptional fan game. It's just so good at nailing that Touhou sense of mysticism and wonder. Like with this part at the end where you fight through a mystic portal full of spirits and bullets and then discover this on the other side. And then you meet the beautiful and kind final boss with a theme that, I can't lie, it gives me goosebumps hard. I can't say I've dabbled much in Touhou fan games, but I feel confident in saying that Servants of Harvest Wish is one of the best. I believe Zune himself would feel pride at the work that was done out of passion for his franchise. Difficulty rating of...
Danmakai Red Forbidden Fruit.
Ah, Danmakai. This one has the reverse problem of Freedom Finger. Here the gameplay is spot on and satisfying, but the presentation is just so lacking. Bare bones backgrounds that look like they came out of RPG Maker presets, and low effort music that is especially bad on boss fights. Horribly dull and repetitive tracks with the same 4 or 5 notes just repeated over and over. I'll be turning the music off for this one. As far as gameplay, you collect gems to power up your bomb, and use it to turn all bullets in range into white gems that increase the value of the green. Also, remember the boost mode from Crimson Clover that gives you on-the-fly control over the difficulty? Well, Danmakai has a similar mechanic that maxes out the difficulty rank at certain levels, depending on the base difficulty. Though I don't care what this rank says, some of these patterns are not easy mode material. I still haven't figured out how not to get hit by that. I'd say get this one on sale if you aren't bothered by the lackluster presentation. Difficulty rating of...
TCStrikers.
I watched TCStrikers 2 and 3 at Shmup 4 this year and decided to cover them on the show, but I don't know why. I mean, not to be rude, but they're really sloppy. Trying to run the first game in full screen led to part of the playfield being cut off by the sidebar. TCStrikers 2 fared a little better, but I still wasn't impressed enough to justify my purchase and wound up getting a refund. Why the hell did I decide to cover— Damn! Her hitbox is bigger than Letty White Rocks. I mean, goddamn, most Danmaku games have a graze mechanic, but this is ridiculous. Looking like she got a little too friendly with the Harvest Sisters from Mountain of Faith. I'm just kidding, I actually love her. The first game is free if you want to get some exposure to the series without any commitment, and the other two are pretty cheap. Difficulty rating of...
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
This one's for the fighters, this one's for the soldiers, this one's for the warriors, freedom. This one's for the leaders, this one's for the dreamers, this one's for the keepers, freedom. There were 3 things that kept me from giving Dariusburst Chronicle Savior a chance until the winter sale of 2020. First, I don't have much history with the series. In fact, I didn't even learn until this year what a massive series it is. Darius Twin, Darius Gaiden, G Darius, Darius R. I mean shit, the only exposure I had to it as a kid was watching Jet Li chain a librarian to a chair and make her play Darius Gaiden. I have specific kinks, what can I say? And yes, Ed, I know full well I'm not pronouncing it right. Apparently, it's supposed to be pronounced Darius or Dariusu, but I'm a dumb American and I'm gonna pronounce it like one. The second problem was the trailer and the, what I considered at the time, god-awful song called Freedom. Obviously, I've warmed up to it a bit since then. There's one or two other stinkers in the soundtrack, but the rest by Zuntata is really good. I especially like the first level of arcade mode when the slow theme transforms into this beautiful, ass-kicking track when the boss shows up. The last problem was that price tag. Ouch. This has got to be the most expensive shmup on Steam. It's so expensive that there's a pinned topic on the Steam discussions page specifically about the price tag. Well, thankfully I bought it half off on sale and wasn't disappointed with my purchase. There's plenty of content here to satisfy your needs, along with a surprising amount of DLC that pays heartfelt homage to some shmup classics. More on that later. Let's get down to gameplay. Every ship gets a standard shot that can be upgraded to new types, that can block certain shots or pierce through enemies and walls, missiles that behave similarly depending on the ship, and shield charges by collecting blue orbs. But the most interesting and vital to learn mechanic is the laser, which varies between ships. The standard ship can either fire a manual beam that is very powerful but eats through energy quickly, or set a laser option in place that can be controlled and will continue to fire in a direction until energy runs out. Positioning this right is key to dealing more damage and blocking enemy attacks, which by the way feed more energy into the laser. And lest we forget one of the coolest, most risky attacks that you can do with this thing. You guys ready for this? Because I only managed to get footage of it once.
So beautiful.
As far as content, you get an arcade mode that players with dual monitor setups or super wide screens will get a lot of use out of. The original mode is a typical arcade run with branching paths, but the Chronicle mode is like working with other players online to conquer nodes on different planets. You also get CS mode that thankfully squeezes the screen down to a more standard size. This is where most of the content is, as this mode has a staggering amount of levels with branching paths just all over the place. Each node is a collection of levels and boss fights, some as short as just one boss fight, with others ballooning into ridiculous marathon lengths that will seriously put you to the test. And unfortunately, that's one of my problems with this mode. You earn points that can be spent as currency that can be used to either unlock new ships or ditch the preset stats and instead dump points into upgrading whatever part of whatever ship you want. If a node says there won't be any power-up drops, you might want to upgrade your primary weapon a few times. And with no armor drops, you'll definitely want more shield power. However, if you fail, all those points will be spent for nothing, and that's a problem to me. This game can be so hard and some boss fights take so long that I often end up underestimating or overestimating how many points I should put into armor, just so I can make damn sure to get through this alive. Okay, cool, I beat it, but now it's gonna take that much longer to unlock the cooler ships. I've heard you can grind the first level for points, but it gives a pittance, and who wants to grind in a shmup anyway? Nah, instead I challenge you to beat my high score in level 1. Hey, come on, Ed! How many times have you talked about this game on your channel? You gotta step up your game, my dude. So not being able to quickly unlock new ships in CS mode is a pain, but thankfully you can go into DLC mode and try all the Darius ships for free, along with a bunch of ships from other shmups if you're willing to pony up the dough. Ever wanted to know what Dodonpachi would play like from a horizontal perspective? Well, now you know. Oh hell yeah, we've got Death Smiles in here. Battle Garega? Freaking Fantasy Zone? I mean, I've never played it, but I'm sure some of you have. All these different shmups from different companies being brought together here is really nice. Gives the game a real sense of community, like the devs really have a passion for the genre. Here's hoping that Pyramid or Taito or Square Enix or whoever the hell is in charge at this point ports Darius Cosmic Revelation to Steam soon. Dariusburst Chronicle Saviors. It's expensive, but it's worth it. Nothing left to say except... You'll never win unless you use Well, that was certainly something. I live in an apartment building and my neighbors must have either been laughing their asses off or wondering if they should call the police. Special thanks to Ed from Bullet Heaven for tracking down the lyrics to that wonderful song. And thanks to the animators that allowed me to use their Touhou clips. You can find links to their work in the description. Please consider becoming a spooky, scary subscriber so you don't miss out on the special thing I have planned for December. Something I'm a big fan of that might catch you by surprise. Until then, have a happy Halloween. This is A Skeleton signing out. Anybody notice every boss in this game is a fish? What the hell is up with that?